Hello, hello. Welcome to this episode of The Creative Pause. My name is Susan Padrone, and I am here with my co-host, who I will allow to introduce herself.
Hello, everybody. I'm Stacey Fay. It's so good to be with you today on The Creative Pause. And we're so excited today to have Sara Sealy with us, and we'll introduce her formally in a moment. But she'll help us do some self-massage and some awareness of how we might be carrying some things in our bodies these days, which I think all of us are with what we've been through over the past few months. So why are we here? We're always here to give you a moment of respite and a time of connection and joy and an ability just to take a deep breath, check in with yourself, see how you're doing, and hopefully get something hopeful and good out of this episode that can help you with your week and your coming months to feel better and to get some joy. So thanks for being with us. And speaking of joy, we always have a question that we ask at the beginning of the episode. And today's question is, what is bringing you joy lately? So what is bringing you joy? We encourage you to think about this at home, write it down, say it aloud. And the three of us here, myself, Susan, and Sara, will also talk about that. So I will go first. What is bringing me joy? Well, I just came back from a pretty low-key kind of do-it-yourself vacation down the Jersey Shore last week. And so I'm thinking a lot about joy, of what brought me joy then and what can continue to bring me joy as I move ahead. And so I would say, in this current time and space coming off that vacation, it will be the beach. Because we were just down near Cape May in a little rental property, and we didn't do very much except go to the beach, which was about a block and a half away. So being able to just spend some hours there, see my son play in the sand and play in the ocean and hear the ocean waves was just super grounding and really reminded me of how nature can be healing and really grounding at this time. So how about you, Susan? Where are you finding joy lately?
Oh my gosh. So before I answer, I just have to say, like, the pictures that you were posting of your little getaway were just heavenly. And I am dying to stay at that rental because it just looks so beautiful. And it really seems like you had a really, really nice time, which I know is beyond well-deserved. So for me, I mean, I completely agree with you. The beach always brings me joy, but I think that lately, I think what I've been trying to do in the morning is spending time outside and really just taking more than just a minute for myself to breathe, to just take in what the sky looks like, how the air feels, just taking in all of that nature around me. And I think it's just to connect with nature, but also connect with myself. And that's something now that I've been really trying to do consistently for quite some time. And I'm noticing a really nice difference in how my day is starting and how I'm able to feel more connected within my body throughout the day, rather than having that like mental, heady kind of disconnect that I know I was struggling with for a long time. So connecting with nature and connecting with myself has been bringing me a lot of joy lately. Sara, what about you, my dear? What's been bringing you joy lately?
I'm so glad you guys asked. And also, I love both of your answers because they both have to do with nature. And I think that that's something that this time of pause in our just world at the moment, with COVID, has really invited us to do, is to take those moments to slow down and connect to nature again. It's like outdoors and being in nature seems to feel safe. And so I've been doing the same. I've been taking myself for early morning beach trips. I've been walking my dog in the park. I've been taking her for hikes. But I've also been really just enjoying the slowness, like a slower pace. And I think that's something really nice that I found during this time was just to be able to step out of the hustle a little bit and really focus on the things that bring me ease and bring me joy. And sometimes that's like cooking something really delicious or playing my favorite song and having a solo dance party in my living room. But yeah, I would just say really simple pleasures and just taking the time to just enjoy, life and enjoy the things that, get more time for the things that we enjoy.
Oh, completely. I hear you completely. I think this moment, this time period, as difficult as it's been for so many of us, it's given us, permission, really. We've talked about permission many times in this series, and it's given us permission just to focus on joy and figure out, okay, like we have a lot of things kind of taken away from us. So for those things that we do have access to, how can we maximize that? And what are those things we can do to make us feel good?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the slowness and reminding yourself to enjoy the slowness is a message that I know personally I've been constantly like reminding myself. Just yesterday I was running errands and they were taking longer than usual. And I remember I was texting a friend of mine. It was like, the universe is telling me that I just need to be okay with going slower today. And I think 6 months ago, I would have been so annoyed and so irritated at like how things were going and how I kept running into problem after problem, putting that in air quotes, after problem. But because of how life has shifted, it's forced me to change my perspective and just be like, today is just going to be a slower day. Like, things are going to get done when they get done, and I'm going to be okay with that. And it was fine. Like, yeah, everything got done. I still felt accomplished and felt good, but it just took a little while longer.
I think that's exactly right. I've been finding that I've started front loading my joy in my day, because it's so important, and it's something that I've neglected. I think we all do, like we wake up and we're like, okay, I have to get this and this and this and this done. And the truth of the matter is that if you take time first for yourself and you front load your joy in your day, then it's like all the other things that need to get done, they'll get done because they have to. It's like they're not going to get done. But if we wait, to have joy, we'll always find an excuse or a reason to postpone it.
Oh,
100%. Yeah.
Stacy and I were like, yes, yes, it's amazing. I'm sorry, Stacy, go ahead. I interrupted you.
No, I don't know if I had anything else to say about that. 100% true. Yeah. I am that person who would always delay the joy, right? Or delay the nap, or delay the thing that makes you feel kind of like delicious and good. Because I always felt like I had to get done so many different things, and life just gets, life takes you away with its busyness. And so, yeah, I love that sort of front ending or front loading joy. That's a really good way of thinking of it.
Yeah, I had the same reaction where just like, oh, I felt that front loading joy. And I feel like too, with how I've been spending my mornings, that's a little glimpse of that I've been doing for myself. But I think now that I have a name for it, thanks to what you just said, Sarah, I feel like now it can be an even stronger reminder. Like, I'm gonna front load my day with joy, and then it's just gonna make the rest of my day that much better. So thank you for that. Thank you for that little gift.
Absolutely.
So now what I would love to do is share Sarah's quote, and I'm going to do a quick little screen share so we can pull that up. And here we go. Da, da, da. There we go. Okay. All right. So the quote that Sara shared with us is, one of the deepest longings of the human soul is to be seen. So, Sara, what is it about that quote that made you want to share it with us today? Why does it resonate with you?
I think it resonates because, well, I've been a healer for over 20 years at this point, and I can honestly say that all healing work is love plus intention. And beyond that, it's holding another person in regard. And I say that with such gravitas, because regard, it's to be seen, and to be fully seen, and to be fully seen without judgment. It really just makes people feel safe. And it is one of the most healing things that you can offer another human being, is to say, I see you, and it's okay. You're okay. So yeah, Absolutely. John O'Donohue is one of my favorite poets and I mean writers. He's amazing. And if you haven't read any of his work, I highly recommend looking him up because, you know, one line just sums it up.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, oh, so beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I just want to say briefly before Susan introduces you formally, Sarah, that I read that quote and I just took a deep breath. Like when I read it earlier, before, knowing it was going to be on the show, because it does resonate that deeply. I think there's nothing even more to say except it says it all and makes you think about every moment in your life where you've been seen by another person and what that's meant.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that, Stacey, because I felt like speechless after, reading the quote and then Sarah after what you shared. And it is just so succinct and so resonant that it's just like, yes, yes. I don't, I couldn't say anything more. I felt it so deeply. Okay, so now I get the wonderful pleasure of more formally introducing our guest today, Sara Seeley. And Sara Seeley is a master Thai yoga therapist, embodiment coach, and somatic healer. She has been in practice for nearly 20 years, working with people of all ages and backgrounds to help them heal from physical injuries and emotional pain. Her work is rooted in the belief that our body is an actual living metaphor for our lives, a work of precious art that has been shaped and molded into a storehouse of experiences, emotions, thoughts, beliefs, and memory, and that any change, whether physical, emotional, habitual, social, etc., must first begin in the body. I had the pleasure of meeting Sara through what has been in the past and what was supposed to be a retreat called Rise Gatherings. And Sara and I met at a full day little mini retreat that was for the facilitators and the service providers. And just being around Sara, hearing her speak and then watching her do her presentation and just walking all of us through different techniques that we could use on ourselves or on other people. Her energy just exudes this beautiful, healing, loving, angelic light that is just it's such a joy to be around. She is such a joy to be around. So I am truly honored and thrilled to have her on today. So I will hand over the mic to Sara.
Thank you for that beautiful introduction. And like having a humble moment. But I'm so happy to be here. And I want to start off, I also picked that quote because I think a lot of times in our lives, we tend to see what's wrong. And we tend to really focus on what's going wrong, and we immediately jump to try to fix it, circumnavigate it, numb it, whatever it is that we do, without actually understanding the problem to begin with. And so just to begin with a demonstration, I feel that this will sum up my work a little bit more succinctly than anything that I could say out loud. Let's just begin by just hold up a hand, and I want you to make a fist. And so this fist, this is whatever habit that you really want to break, whatever it is that you don't like about your life, a tension, a pain, anything that you've been experiencing in your body. And this fist is committed to being a fist. It doesn't want to do anything other than be a fist. And even just hearing that, you feel your fist tighten up a little bit, right? Yeah, absolutely. So now let's bring our other hand over. And now this fist, still committed to being a fist, doesn't want to be anything other than a fist, right? We're going to bring this other hand over and start to try to pry your fist open. And just get in there and see what happens when you really try to force that fist to open. Okay. So just notice that. And so now the fist still wants to be a fist. Come on back. And now we're going to try something a little bit different. So I want you to now take your fist and hold it in your other hand. And we can even use that other hand to squeeze that fist and just say to it, like, I acknowledge that you're a fist. And hey, man, like, you get to be a fist. It's totally cool. And we can hold it, and we can also give it some love and some compassion. Because whatever is there for a really good reason. We may not always understand or know the reason, but it's there for a really good reason. And when we just take a moment to hold something, to fully see it, to hold it in regard, what do we feel that starts to happen? You start to feel your fist relax a little bit, don't you? Absolutely. And so that's going to be kind of the basis of what I want to share with you today, is that forcing things doesn't work. We almost tighten up and we resist a little bit more. But when we take time just to be with what's there, to be with, that's where the change occurs. And it's so simple. And it's almost, frighteningly so. And I think of, Wizard of Oz, if they had told her in the beginning of the movie that all she needed to do was click her heels together 3 times and say there's no place like home, there wouldn't have been a great movie, But sometimes the simplest answers are the ones that we need. And the simplest answer is that with anything that we're looking to heal in our lives, whether it's like a relationship or whether it's a habit or whether it's a pain or a discomfort that we're experiencing, it's important to first see it and be with it. And so we'll start there. And I think a lot of times we don't take the time to fully understand or notice what's happening in our body. So to begin, I'm just going to invite everyone to, wherever you're sitting, just to sit back a little bit and allow yourself some support. So allow yourself to lean back in your chair, have some support at the back of your chair. You may even feel your feet supported on the ground. You may even feel your legs being supported by the chair underneath of you, your buttocks, noticing where your hands are. And with that support, go ahead and invite your eyes to move back into your head a little bit. Allow your eyes to almost come back into your skull and drop down to the back of your skull. And with that, also allow your jaw to begin to soften. Our jaw has this beautiful design where our teeth don't actually have to touch. We can create a little space in there. And just noticing what shifts and changes occur just in that simple act of leaning back, feeling into support, allowing your eyes to do a little less, and to also allow your jaw to soften. You may even start to notice your breath a little bit now. And just noticing what's there. There's nothing that we have to change or shift. We're just inviting some awareness. Our bodies tend to speak to us in a couple of different ways, either through sensation, and that can be temperature, that can be pressure, that can be pain, tightness. We can also feel things like movement, and that might feel like a buzzing or a pulsing or a throbbing. But we also start to notice our sensations through our senses. So through our sense of smell, sight, hearing, taste, and especially touch. And so with my work, I like to address the body because our body is truly the home to our soul on earth. And whatever we're experiencing, whatever thoughts we have in our head, whatever beliefs we have in our head, they actually begin in our body, believe it or not. And I can give you a good example. So come on back. But I'll give you a quick example. So I was walking my dog the other day, and I, was in a hurry, and I started to walk out into the street, and I didn't look both ways, and, a car came. And so, of course, my body physically jumped out of the way first. That's the first thing that happened. The second thing that happened is that I noticed, like, oh, my heart rate is elevated. Oh, I feel tension. The third thing that registered was then my mind, which was like, oh my God, that was a close call. So what happens is that we tend to have responses that come up in our body. And then we'll feel the physical sensations and those after effects. And then our brain starts to make sense of it. We may even have like an emotional component that goes along with it. And so everybody's wired differently. For me, if I walk into a crowded room or a party, my heart rate starts to come up. And that's usually an indication that I'm not feeling very safe, And so a lot of times I think that when we get injured, it's either to our sense of safety, our sense of dignity, or our sense of belonging. And so I'll say that again. So it's either to our sense of safety, our sense of dignity, or our sense of belonging. Because all human beings, we need to feel safe. We need to also feel that we have value and we have worth. And we also need to feel that we belong and that we are valued within a community. And so, if enough people hurt me, I might develop a belief system that says that, oh, in order to be safe, I can't be around people. Or, in order to belong to this group, I need to hide certain parts of myself. And so I'm sacrificing my dignity in order to belong to that group. And so just having moments where you find places in your body where you feel safe, or starting to notice those physical responses that we have, like tight shoulders, like my shoulders come up when I don't feel safe. I feel a tightness in my chest. I'll feel my breath quicken, or my heart starts to race. I might get clammy. Those are indications that I may not feel safe in this moment. And so then the question is, how do we get safe? And so for me, a lot of times you may need to mobilize. You may need to leave the room. You may need to walk away. You may need to excuse yourself. You may need to have a solo dance party in your kitchen, or you may need to do a little self-soothing. And so today I wanted just to share with you a couple of my favorite massage techniques, just for bringing yourself to a more calm nervous system state. And so we'll begin with the top ones that I think of when I think of the things that get a little, tense and stressed for me. And that's my head. My head gets a little tense. And so we'll just start there. You're going to take your fingers just really wide, and we'll come on up and just start to give yourself a good shampoo. And so it's a little bit different than moving your hair around. I want you to think about moving your scalp around. And then also get really curious about what's going on. Like, where does your scalp move? Where doesn't it? Where does it feel a little tight? Where does it feel loose? I even get really curious about the bumps on my head and like the little, our skull is not just one bone, it's several. And so we can almost feel like the sutures of our skull in there too, which is kind of fun. But just having a little curiosity, just being like, that's interesting. Or like, I didn't know that was there. And there's no judgment. It's just regard. It's just seeing. And then I also like to kind of interdigitate my fingers too as I'm going. And then really move everything around. And then after you've done that, just notice how different you feel. I always feel a little bit more like, gosh, I feel like I can breathe better. And you know, I've been noticing too, just through everything that's been going on in the world, and, you know, I'm an empathetic, caring, sensitive human being, you know, just like I'm sure you all are. And so my brow has been furrowing. I've been really thinking, and I think we've all been like very forward in computers. And so even just when we started, that act of leaning back. So when I lean forward, this is almost like an aggression, you know, like I'm going to tell you a thing or two, or, you know, it's like, and we can start to notice that our hearts will race just from leaning forward. But when we lean back, that opens up perspective. Now I have choices. Now I can see what's to the right and to the left of me. It's not just here focused in on blinders. And so we can also just lean back a little bit into your chair. And I just like to take my fingers right at the center of my forehead and just draw little stripes from the center of my forehead out. And if you have some support behind you too, and sometimes this is really nice to do on the floor as well, you can even press in with the heels of your hands and really just lean back into whatever support you have and just smooth out your brow. And if that doesn't quite feel like an option too, you can even lean forward into the support of your hands and just let the weight of your head rest in your hands as you smooth out your brow. I like to do it with the heels of my hands, my fingers. Sometimes I'll even just like invert my hands so I can take my thumbs up along my brows and just do a little wipe across. I almost like to think that I'm like clearing my thoughts while I'm doing this too. I'm just being really aware. And sometimes as you're going, you may feel like a little tight spot, and we can just stay. You can stay there with it. Before you move on, just stay with that tightness, and then you can move on. Let's bring our fingers. So I'm just going to take 2 fingers now, just right on either side of my eyes, right on my temples, and I'm just going to draw small circles around. And when we get stressed, when we get triggered, when our systems are up, almost everybody tends to tighten their jaw. And so the next thing I like to do is take the pinky side heel of my hands, just stick it right in my jaw. And by the way, your jaw starts much higher up, right up here, like right where the little wing of your ear is. If you open and close your mouth, you'll feel it. It's pretty high, right? So now just go right below that, and you'll feel like just below the joint. And then you can take the heels of your hands and just drag them down the sides of your jaw. And then double bonus if you let your jaw fully relax and just go and open. I'm doing this for you guys. I realize it's a recording and I'm going to be like, whoa. It's not the most attractive look. However, doesn't it feel amazing?
I love it. It does feel so good. I like no judgment on the sounds or the faces or anything, because I am here for it completely.
Awesome. So just a couple more times, and I tend to do this like anytime I start to notice that I have jaw tension. It's just like, hey babe, you can just be here. You can relax it. We can do things the tight way, or we can do things an easier, more joy-filled way. And then we also tend to hold a lot of tension around our ears too, believe it or not. And so I like to take my little peace fingers, and I'll just take them right on either side of my ear, and you just squeeze and rub up and down. It's just heaven. And so I don't know about you, but I also tend to get really tight shoulders. I think from all the hunching and the keyboards. And, also too, our bodies tend to shape themselves for either efficiency and or safety. And so in some ways, we're all at a desk computer culture. And so I would say that rounding my shoulders has become extremely efficient. But also too, I've been really hurt in my lifetime, as have we all. We've experienced pain. And this is also protecting our heart, you know? But what happens is that when we are in a constant state of hunch, the muscles back here are just getting stretched. And that's actually what starts to cause the tension, because it's a stretch. And that's where the tension is. And I'll give you just a quick Cliff's Notes of my work, is that the background of this work is that whenever we encounter a tension, it's almost always a buried emotion of some kind or another. We may not always know what that emotion is. We may not always know the reason or the story behind it, but our body remembers. And so sometimes just giving it a little squeeze. And so you can reach over with one hand, and I'm just grabbing with my fingers, just this like big chunk of muscle. Just go ahead and just give it a good squeeze. And you can even squeeze and lift a little bit too. I can already feel my other side getting jealous, so I'm just going to move over there. It's like, but wait. So I just give myself a little squeeze. I think a lot of times we can neglect our pain, and we can say like, oh, I'll wait until I have time to get a massage, or, we can ask someone else to do it, and that's great. That's fine. I love relying on other people for support, but I also really think it's important for us to support ourselves too. Because when we do feel supported by ourselves, or even our bodies just feel supported by what we're sitting on, it also then allows our body to realize that it's safe to receive support from others.
Sara, when you're doing body work on clients, do you find that there's ever a time where they have emotions that come up because of the release of the emotions that have been trapped within the body? And how do you handle that? Or do you just hold space for them and allow them to experience it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think I would say that there's a difference between emotional release and catharsis. First of all, so catharsis, we've all experienced that. That's just like, I can't control myself, it's just coming up and out. And a lot of times I feel like that is due to what our brains are saying. We can really like nag on ourselves, and we can get really into storytelling. And it's like, and I almost think sometimes our thoughts can be like, blood in the water. Like, it's like, as soon as there's like a little drop of water, then the sharks are like, get her, and they come in. And that sometimes can lead us down a path of catharsis, which is a really intense emotional release. But if it's like tears, things like that are happening, sometimes even anger will come up. I think when it's a client, I never clock it as being personal. It's not personal. When it's me, I just sort of realize that it's a necessary release. And so I treat it the way that I would, a child who's upset, or, if my dog were scared or upset. It's, you just get really soothing, and it's just like, it's okay. I've got you. You're safe here. You can cry as long as you need to. I'm not going anywhere. And I think, just offering that again to another person, that's wonderful. We can also offer that to ourselves. It's like, I've got you. Everything that's happening right now is totally valid, and it's okay. And I don't try to change it. One of the things that I teach my students is that when someone starts to cry, in a session, like, one of the worst things you can do is hand them a tissue. Because it's like, oh, I'm uncomfortable here, clean yourself up. It's like, I like to have them around and available. Obviously if you want one, you can have one, or if you ask for one, I'm going to give it to you. It's not something that I try to shut up or shut down. I want to allow for it.
That's beautiful. Your explanation, your process, all of that is truly beautiful. And I've heard the don't pass the tissue technique as well. And I think it's a good reminder. And you, again, worded it so beautifully. Like, when you're handing someone a tissue in that kind of environment, it could be like, oh, like I'm uncomfortable with how you're expressing your feelings, instead of just allowing their feelings to flow and witnessing it, and just holding it in regard and allowing it to happen, and then just being there for support rather than clean yourself up.
Absolutely. I have I call it conversational narcissism. And that would be when, and it happens, in really micro ways and also in big ways in our culture these days. And essentially, what conversational narcissism is that, oh, you've shared something with me that has made me feel uncomfortable. And, it's going to be a bodily response first. And so let me turn the conversation back to something that I'm far more comfortable discussing, which is myself. And that happens in really micro ways, like you can be at the office and it's like, hey, Bob, how are you? Oh, I'm really tired. Oh, me too. My boss is just like riding my ass this week, and I've got, paperwork and the kids. And, it's like, I haven't given Bob an opportunity to talk. I've just shut him down. And so those tiny little ways that we shut people down, that's how we start to make people get smaller and smaller and smaller. But allowing that conversation to take place in a different way, like, Bob, how are you? Oh, I'm really tired. Really, what's going on? Tell me more. And that invites Bob in order to then come and start to share and to open up and to start to feel safe. And that's where we start to repair those things to our safety, dignity, and belonging, is that I've invited him to feel safe by asking a question and inviting him to share more. And that might also be really reparative for his sense of belonging and also his sense of dignity. And so we can do that for ourselves as well as for others. So thank you so much for asking that question.
Yeah, as you were speaking there, Sarah, it reminded me of the fact that often when any of us have been through traumas as well, we can shut ourselves down so much so. Like you were talking about, yourself and the other and how you might interact. But I think often, and this obviously gets at the self-massage that you're offering here, I think often as a byproduct of trauma, if certain difficult emotions come up, or the tears or any of it, you can kind of get like, I know I'm that way. I can get very skittish with it and want to shut myself down. And I think these sorts of things you're lifting up here are an invitation for us too, with our own sense of self, even if we have no one else in the room, to say it's okay. Like it's okay for those things to come up, and to kind of embrace and hold ourselves, or do the massage techniques that allow us to feel like we can release some of it and just be in the body as opposed to fleeing from the body.
Absolutely. I'm glad you said that, because, we tend to shut down our own emotional responses because we've had that programming from, parents, caregivers, friends, teachers, whoever in society that's been like, stop crying, buck it up, walk it off, champ, whatever we get, we're like, oh, it's not a big deal. Or like, have you tried meditation? And it doesn't actually give us an opportunity to express and share our full range of human emotions, which, by and large is what makes us human, to be empathic. It's like just having attention in and of itself is, that's like cataloging, being able to take attention and awareness with it and curiosity. That's empathy. That's being able to connect to another human being through a vast array of experience. So, can I share a couple more? Do I have time for like 2 more things?
Yeah, we would love that.
Right. So, this is probably my most favorite thing that I do for myself, is to just start to invite myself to open my heart. A lot of times we can have these habits, as I said, it's, for me, my shoulders have learned to curve forward to protect my heart. but it's actually not needed necessarily any longer. You know, like I'm a big girl now, and you know, I have this big, huge, open heart that just wants to talk and be shared. And it also knows how to protect itself, and I know how to set boundaries. And so this actually doesn't really serve me so much anymore. And so it's only when a habit becomes something that's not serving you any longer, that's when we can start to change it. And so just knowing that about myself and be like, oh, okay, this used to serve me and I appreciate it, but it's also time to let it go a little bit. And so I'm just going to take my knuckles and I'm going to start right on my sternum, kind of underneath of my collarbone. And I'm just going to draw a line from my sternum to my shoulder. And then I can add a little bit more pressure if I want to, if that feels like something that might be nice for you, by taking the same hand as the side that I'm working on and just pressing that on top of my fist as I move. And then I can even start to help and support this motion by adding in a little twist. And so as I move from my sternum to my shoulder, I can start to twist as well. Isn't that just heaven? And we can also pepper in a little gratitude here. Thank you for keeping me safe. Thank you for protecting me. Thank you for beating. Each beat of our heart is a whisper and a prayer for you to continue to live and carry on. We can just move with some appreciation and some tenderness. Now my other side's getting jealous again, so. And I happen to know that I like strong pressure, and so I'm just gonna go right in with that other hand and that twist. And we can also invite in curiosity. So again, we don't wanna just catalog with awareness and like, oh, I'm tight. We also wanna bring in a little curiosity, like, huh, where am I tight? Where am I not tight? Where it feels really good. Like what part of me enjoys strong pressure? What part of me would prefer a lighter touch? We can play around with that. And also direction. Does it feel better if I move up on a diagonal or if I go parallel to the ground? And then do a little check-in. Just see, how do you feel? It's suddenly, I notice this in everyone. As soon as we do this, everybody wants to start moving. And that's actually amazing because movement is life. You know, like we need our blood to move. We need our lymph to move. We need our breath to move. Our bodies are meant to move. We're meant to express ourselves, not just with what we say, but also with what we don't say through our body language. And so, yeah, invite in some movement and play around a little bit. And then just in closing, I'm going to teach you probably one of my most favorite self-care things I've ever done in my life. And it's to take your right hand. Now, I know most of us, it's summer at the moment, and it may not be when you're watching this video, but I know we're a little sweaty. Don't worry. You're going to take your right hand and put it underneath of your left armpit. Just close down on it. And then take your left hand and wrap it around your right arm. And then take a moment just to close your eyes and allow yourself to settle. Allow yourself to relax a little bit into your own embrace. And this might even be a good opportunity for you to bring in some of those soothing phrases that you would say to a child or an animal. You're okay. I got you. I love you. I'm not going to let anything happen to you. You're safe. I love you. And again, just noticing how your system changes. And then staying there just a moment longer, just bring a little awareness to your heart. And in noticing your heart, ask it if it has something it wants to say. Does your heart have something that it wants to say, some truth it wants to speak? Does it have a need? Is there a desire? Allow it to come forward. And just moving your right hand to your heart, your left hand to your belly. Breathe into whatever your heart had to say and just breathe into that truth to power. That kind of truth that we felt when we heard that John O'Donohue quote. The kind of truth that you can't mess with, and it just clears the air in the room because it is so true. And you may even want to turn that truth into a mantra, just something small and short that you can repeat to yourself. And anytime you need it, anytime you feel yourself doubting, anytime you feel yourself getting tense, anytime you feel yourself triggered or worked up or getting stressed, you can bring your hands to your heart and your belly, and you can speak your mantra again. And I'll tell you what mine is after all of that going through. Mine is just, I'm enough. I'm enough. And that simple reminder will just bring me back to a place of calm, back to a place of truth that feels really, really personal to know that I'm enough. And so are you. Yeah. Susan, Stacy, do either of you want to share your heart truths?
Yeah, I'll share. Mine was I'm powerful.
I love that. I'm powerful. Absolutely.
Yeah, I felt it like really connecting with the idea of I was really resonating with I am okay. And I think that's where the being powerful kind of came out as well, because it's like I am powerful and thus I can make sure that I'm okay and I am safe and I am protected, and all of those beautiful affirmations kind of coming together in my heart space. It just was really beautiful. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of times too, sometimes we think of powerful as like, mighty or this warrior spirit, or, walking into a boardroom and giving everybody the business. But, power is also, knowing when to speak and when to not speak. It's knowing how to set a really clear boundary. It is being kind, even though the person in front of you is not being kind. That's power. That's huge power. And there's all kinds of power. So thank you so much for sharing that. I love that.
Thank you. Stacy, what about you? What was yours?
Yeah, so mine, well, first off, Sarah, with the last exercise, I felt this all throughout, particularly the last exercise, there was definitely a warmth that kind of like just flowed through my heart region. And I just wanted to lift that up because I don't know if anybody, I see Susan shaking, nodding her head, and I'm you too, Sarah. So it must be a common thing that happens, but it's like a warmth and opening that I could feel sort of physically in my body. And my kind of mantra or thing that came up for me was live life. Live life in the sense of, sort of what I expressed earlier of and what we talked about earlier together of cultivating joy and what does joy look like. And so live life for me is, how do you live your joy? What does that mean? And do it, do those things which make your heart feel good and your sense of self feel good. So.
Beautiful. I love that.
Mm.
Yeah, live life. Absolutely. And I think with that, I remember in, I think it's Kabat-Zinn's book, Wherever You Go, There You Are. I think one of the first lines in it is, everything that's ever happened to you has already happened. And I think sometimes we stay so mired in the past that we hold ourselves back from actually truly living life. Like, I remember times when I've been, at my lowest, and even thinking in my own mind, if I don't move, it won't hurt so much. And all that does is just trap it inside of us, and it stalls us. It makes it so that we become powerless, so that we don't live our lives. But movement, any kind of movement, any kind of forward step, just taking one step in front of the other. I mean, even walking in and of itself is falling forward and catching yourself. Every single step you take, you're falling and you're catching yourself. And that's how we do it. We just walk, we stumble, we catch ourselves, and we move forward. And moving in the direction of joy, I mean, there's no other greater gift in this world than to just find your joy and live it. So thank you.
Yeah, and Sarah, that reminded me of something my therapist tells me all the time. Everybody who ever listens to this show knows that I go to therapy. It's no secret, as it shouldn't be. And so she always reminds me, it didn't kill you, right? You're still here on the planet. So whatever it is that you're kind of harboring that focus on, it didn't kill you the first time. It's not going to kill you again. You can walk through that fire and get, and live your life, live that joy that you're moving towards.
Absolutely. I mean, some of the trauma work that I do with people is that, when we've experienced a trauma in our lives, a lot of times what it does is it's almost like a brain tattoo. It just like stamps itself on our brain and in our bodies. And we tend to repeat our story again and again and again, and it goes on a loop. But we only repeat it up to the point where we got hurt. Then we start it again. Boom, to the point I got hurt. Start over again. Boom, to the point I got hurt. And that's not where our story ended. There's something that we did that was incredibly resilient, that was incredibly resourced,ful. That time that we got away, that time that we stood up for ourselves, that time that we moved the car out of the situation, whatever it is, there is something that we did that got us out of that situation that made it possible for our story to continue. And that's where I love to focus. It's like, whatever's happened to you, it's already happened. I don't like to repeat those stories because you already lived it once, so you don't need to live it again. But what I'm really curious about with people is, what did you do to protect yourself, to take care of yourself, and to move forward? My dog's having dreams.
That is so cute. Oh my gosh.
I heard her start to speak up in her sleep. It's like,
Oh.
okay, you're safe. I love you. It's awesome.
Oh, I love that. I love how genuine you are with your healing. How you, like you said, comforting your dog, comforting yourself, comforting someone else. It's the same kind of approach, but it's so beautiful.
Thank you. So I just want to say thank you so much for having me on today. It was delightful to share, and I just encourage you to really find moments where you can create safety for yourself, whatever that means, whether it's finding a little support, finding a moment of just self-touch, finding a moment just to say, I need to just take a minute and take a pause. Allowing yourself to step to the bathroom, to walk away from the party without saying goodbye, whatever it is that you need, and start really putting your safety and your care, ahead of whatever stresses or demands are happening in your life. And so I guess that brings us back to, the very beginning of the segment, which is front load your joy, front load yourself, put yourself before anything else.
Yeah, Sarah, I am so grateful for everything that you shared with us today and just the wonderful connection between the body and the emotional aspects of our lives. And there were so many times throughout when you were speaking and having us do different exercises and witnessing how our bodies felt that I went to the emotional connection to it as well. Like, even at the very beginning, when you had us just lean back a little bit and feel the support that was already there. Like, we're already sitting, or I guess most of us, we were all sitting, but when you're listening to this or watching this, probably sitting or standing, but taking a moment to witness that and that support that's already there, and how that metaphor can be used from an emotional perspective as well. Like, there's support in your life that's already there. And even just taking that moment to acknowledge it or to utilize it can help your body relax, help your mind relax, just like it did leaning back and feeling the chair or the floor beneath you. Um, that's just something that I think I probably needed to hear today. Seeking the support that's already there and allowing myself to utilize it and to feel it, as well as the like the self hug that you were showing us too. I think that especially over the last few months, I'm a hugger. I am a hugger, and I have not been hugging because it's not safe to. I mean, thankfully, my son, my husband, and my animals are all very much used to how affectionate I am, whether or not they always like it. But, so I get that out. But for some of us who may not have anyone at home, doing an exercise like that where you can hold yourself, it was so soothing and so calming, even though it's just you being with yourself, which again is, I think, another thread that connected so many dots of what you've been teaching us today, Sarah, about just being there for yourself, holding yourself, taking care of yourself. All of those are really special um, techniques. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I think that's exactly right. I mean, our brains love to tell us stories, and a lot of times they're very outdated, old stories that aren't true any longer. And so I think the support thing is probably the number one story that I hear the most, which is that I don't have any help, I don't have any support. And it's like, okay, well, let's just feel support. Like, what does support feel like in our body first? And suddenly, something in just allowing yourself to feel the support in your body, then you're like, oh, yeah, I'm not alone. Like, I've got so and so and such, and I can call and ask for help. It's like suddenly we start to realize, like, oh, I am supported. Absolutely.
Well, this is so wonderful, Sarah. I'm so grateful for these exercises, and grateful to have some exercises that you can, even if you can only do one, a day, or one, a few times a week. I feel like it can make such a big difference, because I know with each time that you gave us an exercise, I felt that warmth and that opening. And certainly if you can do them together, it's like a powerhouse of, of things. But I'm so grateful for what you've shared today. And can you share with the audience where they can find you and learn more about what you offer and who you are?
Absolutely. So my website is www.thaibkny.com. So it's THAIBKNY.com. And you can also find me on Instagram at Thai Brooklyn. And I'm always sharing, little tidbits and wisdom there. So come find me and say hello. You can even slide into my DMs. Ask me anything.
Sara also has a little shop element to her website too that I have personally purchased from. There's like a energetic cleansing bath salt that you make that I have used, and I love it. It's so beautiful. Like I love taking Epsom salt baths, but having the combination of what Sarah's created with different dried herbs and flowers and the different types of salts and essential oils, it's heaven. It's like I need more. And I was thinking about that today. I was like, should I order it before or after the episode? But yeah, I'm going to be buying more because it's just divine. So I just had to have that additional plug for Sara because really, it's everything that she does is wonderful.
Oh, I'm glad to learn of that, Sarah. I'm going to be immediately following up on that. That's it for the season, just Sarah shared. Well, thank you so, so much. This was wonderful. And we always end with the same quote in our episodes from a Mary Oliver poem, which is, "What will you do with your one wild and precious life?" So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Sarah, for everything you've shared today, and our audience, takeaways that they can do for self-soothing and self-massage. And we will catch you all in the next episode. Thank you so much.
Bye.